Everyone. Yes, as I said, I'm James Dorey. I'm a junior lecturer here in biological sciences, and I work on bees. So most of the time when I start talking to people about bees, they'll have an image in their mind that probably looks something like these two behind me. Probably either the European honeybee or the bumblebee. But what they don't know a lot of the time is actually both of these bees are introduced and invasive in Australia. They're also surprised to find out that we actually have over 1,600 described species of native bee in Australia alone. Globally, that's more like 21,000 species, which is 3 times the number of mammal species in the world, and we're describing new bees every year. So it may not come as a surprise that even as experts, we don't actually know a lot about these bees. We don't know much about their biology, so where they live, what they eat, how they raise their young. And this is a tenuous position to approach bee conservation from. So obviously, bees are super important in both agricultural and environmental contexts, but also in Australia, we lack bee research capacity. So a lot of people are retiring, and new people are only just coming through now. But this is a really slow process. So for people like me, I collected my first bee about 10 years ago to now presenting to you about them. So it takes quite a while. And especially for new bee researchers entering the fields, identification keys are really important. And these are basically the tools that we use to get a bee from the field and say it's X or Y species. And even for the 1,600 species that we have described, pretty few of them actually have keys. And these bees are either really difficult or impossible to identify. There is kind of a way around this. So we can use genetic data. So for example, genetic barcodes, and then practitioners and researchers can easily get a bee, sequence it, and come back with identification. The major caveat for this is that those data don't really exist yet, but this is a surmountable problem. So for me, as a new bee researcher kind of entering the fields, I'm really interested in challenging the way maybe that we have been doing bee research, and especially in terms of being open, collaborative, and that kind of thing, so sharing data. And as an example of this, with a pretty big international consortium of people, I recently published a program and a data set which makes the world's bee occurrence data available to anyone looking to do research on these animals. But now I'm looking forward to trying to make the Australian bee tree. So basically, I want to collect genetic data from at least every subgenus in Australia, of which there are about 120, and elucidate the relationships between those species. And this, the tree is interesting in and of itself, but the real magic actually happens in terms of the evolution and the ecology. We can get at their adaptability and ultimately looking at the conservation of these bees. So where are we? So I guess over the past 8 years, I have been collecting bees around Australia, and together with my collaborators, we have thousands of specimens from every state in Australia. We have sequences for over 1,000 species so far. We've almost identified them all. So this kind of is going to represent probably the single biggest step in terms of native bee conservation in Australia. And we really want to make sure that we get this right from the outset. So some of the things that we want to do is we want to generate the genetic and ecological data that will have a global reach and really kickstart this research. We want to provide an evidence-based set of information to inform policy and conservation. And of course, ultimately, we want to identify those species that are at risk. So both who and where they are, and maybe what we can do to conserve them. Thank you.